Welcome to another exciting, electrifying episode of Car Smarts Radio. My name is Steve Saffier. Thank you so much for tuning in to 610 ESPN Radio and WOND Radio News Talk 1400 in Atlantic City. If you're listening via podcast, thank you for pushing play. Special show today. I've been wanting to do this show specifically to electric car show, electric vehicles for a long time. And when I stumbled on an EV event, as it's known, a couple of weeks ago in Ambler, I knew I found the right person to talk about EVs and specifically Tesla. Or is it Tesla? I've heard both.
You can say it how you feel. Personally, I call it Tesla, but I think they call it Tesla. So.
Yeah, Elon Musk says Tesla. I've watched a video, which arguably leads the market in electric vehicles, and for good reason. We're going to talk about that. Syd Weinstein, the vice chair of the Delaware Valley Tesla Owners Club, a new club that became official not too long ago. We'll talk about that as well. Welcome to the show, Syd.
Thank you very much for having me.
Before we get to the pros and cons of owning an electric vehicle, tell us a little bit about yourself. Were you a car guy who got into Teslas, or just a normal, everyday person who really became an electric vehicle enthusiast?
I was an environmentalist. I go back to the original Earth Day, when it started way back when. I was involved in recycling before it was a government piece. I did that obviously before I went into college and school and so forth. I then basically looked at getting economical vehicles, and I was the owner of one of the original Priuses back when it had a very different style than the current ones are. And when I was about to retire from industry, I decided I really wanted a new car, and I had looked at the Tesla Roadsters with like great love and lust and whatever, and realized how impractical they would be for me. They didn't have any storage space, and I like to carry a lot of things around with me when I go do gigs and stuff like that. So the Model S came out, and I was following it for a few years, and I finally just talked myself into buying one.
And that's how. Now, how did you come to the club? How did the club form? Tell us a little bit about the whole history.
The Tesla Owners Club the concept was formed by a bunch of people who got together and basically were, there's a lot to be called Tesla fanboys. The term's probably derogatory, but not too inaccurate.
Right.
And so, if you will, as we all got together, and I'm not an early Tesla fan club person, they were mostly out in the West Coast, but Tesla decided that was a good sanction and a good way to provide information to potential buyers, a good way to get feedback, a good way just to have a support group to help people understand them. And they sanctioned clubs in various different areas. And in this area, it was originally Tesla Mid-Atlantic, which covered everything from Virginia all the way through Pennsylvania, obviously, and New Jersey, Delaware, etc. But it got to be too big, especially with the Model 3 coming out. I mean, if you're selling 1 million cars a year concept, which is where they're getting to, not there yet.
Right.
Mid-Atlantic's a large area. We talk about holding an event, and 1,000 people would want to go. You ever try to do logistics for 1,000 people showing up for a lunch somewhere?
Right.
Doesn't work. So basically, we split up the group, and I was approached by another person who was involved with this and said, you want to help out with the Delaware Valley group? And Viviana basically is the founder of the Delaware Valley group, and we had a little get together over at Sagemore in Mount Laurel, and I didn't step back fast enough when she said, who wants to be vice chair?
Right.
And so I'm vice chair, and actually quite happy with that. It's fine. The interesting point beyond that is what we do as a club is we have get-together. It's a social club. Let's be realistic. We are a not-for-profit social club. No different than any other social club. No different than a car club, if you think about it. We get together and have lunches. We go talk. We have meetups. We have car shows, just like any other car club does. We also do charitable events from time to time. We're doing what we call a Decorate the Frunk event at Sagemore coming up for Halloween.
Okay.
We're going to have Sagemore is providing us with candy, and we're decorating our frunks in spooky style and so forth, and the kids are going to go marching around. It's trick or treat, basically. And we also do educational events. We've been teaching new owners for probably about almost a year now how to use their Teslas. That was a program that was started out of Tesla Cherry Hill, and we've been running that program with them. And more recently, we've been doing the same thing, expanding that to first responders. And again, that's a function of the club. It's an unofficial. It's a best effort function. We're not legally whatever, but it does help provide exposure so that first responders know what to do if your Tesla's ever in an accident.
What is different about a Tesla being in an accident than that first responders need to know?
It's not a Tesla as much as an electric vehicle. And this holds for any kind of electric vehicle, be it a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, or a full battery electric vehicle. There's high voltage in the car. These cars run on 400 volts DC. 400 volts DC is enough to ruin your day and the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It doesn't take very much, if you will, to really go deal with this. So what they have to do is they have to learn how to safely deactivate the car so that it's safe to work on the car. The cars are extremely strong. They need to learn how to lift the car safely. They need to learn how to cut into the car to get you out safely. Now, we don't let them cut up a Tesla, but we will show them how to lift a Tesla, where the jack points, where you can put an airbag. Now, airbag in a first responder is a bladder that inflates with air to lift the car off the ground. We're not talking about the thing that explodes in your face.
Gotcha.
And,
Okay.
Okay. And we show them how to do that. We show them how to unlock the cars if the battery's disconnected, because in Tesla, or in most electric cars, all the locks are not mechanical, they're electronic. So if the battery is disconnected, the electronics won't work anymore. You need to know how to get into the car. And there are mechanical overrides for all
Okay.
things like that too. So we show them these things because nobody else does.
Why is this not a national educational program?
It is. There is a portion of the Tesla website dedicated to first responders.
Good.
Most of the videos that we use in our training come right from Tesla's corporate, so that answer there is. The other reason, I think, is that it's just too new. There were not enough of them that they cared right away.
Right.
It's only now with the Model 3 becoming big that you have a chance of running into one pretty much. So it's a relatively new thing.
And what are their sales up to at this point?
Well, they just finished the quarter and released their sales numbers, so it's 97,000 vehicles worldwide for the quarter. So if you multiply that by 4, it's saying it was roughly what it was. It's not, because they actually were under that in the first quarter because of the car industry is always slowest in the first quarter. They're probably about 350 to 400,000 cars this year, somewhere in that range. And remember that at this point, Tesla only sells cars. They don't sell SUVs, they don't sell trucks.
Right.
So people have been calling the X an SUV, but it really isn't an SUV. It's really a big car.
I agree with that.
But so, from a car point of view, the Model 3, I haven't heard this quarter's figures. Last quarter, it was the 3rd best-selling car in the U.S., period. Toyota Camry, Toyota Corolla, 1 and 2. 3 was Tesla. And, it was 4. It was 3 or 4. Now, I may be wrong, I apologize for that, maybe 4, but it was close. The numbers were very close.
Well, just anecdotally, you are seeing more of them on the street, and I know I have friends and relatives in California, and
in California, they're 7% of new car sales. Okay, in Pennsylvania, they're less than 1. In California, they're 7. You're likely to see a lot of them in California.
Yeah, that's right. And you also see them at regular car shows. Like there's a lot of interest in the sort of the general public and the traditional car world for people to see them up close and personal. Maybe they haven't gone to the Tesla center.
There's an interesting reason behind that. And that is, what is the car most people aspire to own, the most popular car in the U.S.? And believe it or not, Pennsylvania, it's not true, but it's when you take all the states and add them up, it's the Tesla Model S. In Pennsylvania, it's the Mustang. In Texas, it's the Corvette. but in the U.S. as a whole, and most of the western part of the U.S., from about Colorado and going west, it's the Tesla Model S. It is, it's happens to be the car I drive, because I bought mine before the Model 3 was even announced.
Right.
I bought mine before the Model X came out even. So, but the X is too big for me. But it is a very fun car to drive. It is a very efficient car to own. And with the Model 3, it ends up being a lot less expensive to own than a lot of what you'd call your mid-upper mainstream cars, your Toyota Camry. It is actually less expensive to own a Tesla Model 3 than a Toyota Camry, which surprises people greatly.
Right. And we are going to get into the cost, benefits, the service schedule,
For lack thereof.
or what it is, and all the other aspects of that. Now the X, I was at this event in Ambler a couple weeks
It's
ago.
called National Drive Electric Week. It's been held every year. It's actually sponsored by Nissan and the Sierra Club. And it's been held for a lot of years, and there are hundreds of events around the country. There were 5 in this immediate area. Ambler, Tesla Owners Club did one the week before. It runs from a Saturday to a Sunday, but it's actually 9 days. It's 8 or 9 days, if you will. And the Ambler was on the last day of the event this year. So Rick runs the one in Ambler and has for several years.
And Jaguar was out there with their E-Pace, but mostly Teslas, I think I remember.
We had a lot of different cars. We had, well, at our event over in South Jersey, we actually had a Nissan dealer brought a Leaf over.
Okay.
But yes, Jaguar I was really happy to see Jaguar be there with their car. We had some Leafs, we had some Bolts, some Volts, we had a couple BMW i3s. Okay. So we had a pretty large.
So the 10 minutes I was there, I must have missed it.
No, they were there, and the test drives. You didn't go over to the test drive area. They had an i3 for a test drive, they had a Leaf for a test drive, and they had a bunch of Model 3s for test drives.
What kind of events do you have coming up with the club? Anything going on?
Well, we mentioned Frunk Retreat, which is the event for children. We basically have a winery tour coming up. We like to inaugurate Superchargers. We basically do a ribbon cutting. So if there's a new Supercharger in the area, we will all show up a week or 2 after it opens, stand there with the same piece of ribbon. We've used it every single one of them, pretend to cut it.
Well, that's very environmental of you to reuse the ribbon. Are these, no, these are the charging, these are the stations, the charging stations.
Yes, if you will, charging is a very...
As you say supercharge on this show, it might ring differently.
We can go talk about the misnomers and things, but supercharging from a Tesla point of view is a level 3, or it was called in the rest of the industry a DC fast charger. And Tesla was the first to actually put those out and have them. And there are I need to call up a slide in my laptop here real fast, so I don't get the exact number. But there are hundreds of 700, 800, close to 1,000 stations in the US at this point. And there are anywhere from 8 to about 40 charging pedestals per station. And these are where you can charge your Tesla in 20 minutes.
And here's my question, and is it integrated? Like, how's the payment work? Is it integrated, or do you stick a credit card in? Or does it just go through the system?
It's built into the system. Yeah. Basically, you give Tesla your charge card number, and once a month they bill your charge card for the energy you used.
I gotcha.
Or if you have an old enough car like mine, it was bundled in the price of the car, and we don't pay for it at all. Okay. Because we paid for it up front.
I see.
And honestly, we paid for more than we will ever use in the life of the car.
Interesting.
But that was to build out the Supercharger network. We were the early adopters.
Right.
The early adopters paid more.
And these stations, at least I went on a test drive, and I will talk about that later in the show. But at least the newer versions of the Tesla, and maybe your software's been updated, but it tells you where where all the stations are, and how many cars actually are parked at the station, how many open spots there are, which is pretty incredible.
If you will, there are 702 stations in the U.S., and I'm sorry that the audience can't see this, but I wanted to show this to you. That they are literally all over the country. The dots are horrendous.
You want to give the website out?
This is called supercharge.info, but you can also get to it through the Tesla website, tesla.com, and click on the good old hamburger icon, the menu icon, and click on charging.
Right.
If you scroll down to supercharging, you can see that. But honestly, you rarely use a supercharger. You use that when you're on a road trip.
Right.
The advantage of an electric car is you charge at home. And I know some people can't charge at home. They live in an apartment or whatever. But I charge at home. So every day when I leave my house, I have the equivalent of a full tank of gas. Right. And people say, how long does it take to charge your car? My favorite answer is 10 seconds. And they give me this incredulous look. I go, it takes me 5 seconds to plug it in. I go in the house. What the car does in between, I don't know or care. When I get out in the morning, it takes me 5 seconds to unplug it. Right. My car is charged.
You basically go to sleep.
Or even if I just do something, and actually the car I have a schedule so that it does it when the garage is cooler in the summer. I don't want the car trying to cool the battery off while the garage is hot. So my car charges at 1 in the morning. So yeah, it does it while I'm asleep. Yeah. And it doesn't take it all night to charge because my car's not empty at the end of the day. I don't drive 300 miles in a day, most days. So it charges, well, I only charge one every other day, but it charges an hour, hour and a half.
Wow. Right.
That's it.
Right. You know, so you don't deplete the battery at the end of the day. You have most of your battery left.
When you drive into your garage at night, don't have an empty tank usually.
That's right. That's right.
You know, the difference is that we plug it in more often than you go to a gas station because we can.
We're going to take a little break right now. When we come back, we'll talk about the other advantages of owning a Tesla and hit on a few of the capabilities of the different, trim packages. I don't think that's the right terminology of Teslas. Right after these messages on Car Smarts Radio. That's great.
Like I said, I'll keep you quiet.
No.
We also need to bring up other people's cars. I don't want to just only talk Tesla.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Oh, yeah. Sure. In fact, I mentioned Spark and the Bolt in one of my...
Spark is not around anymore.
There's... What?
The Chevy Spark?
They said there's a 2020 on its way to...
Oh, it's a new one. The old Chevy Spark is gone. I have a list of all the cars sold here.
Okay.
And the Spark's that's a newer. The original Spark was a compliance car for California only. And it stopped being produced about 3 years ago. So be careful with that. They're reusing the name for a newer car.
Yeah.
And it's right now a China car, and I don't know what they're going to do in the U.S. with it. I don't want to get too much into that one. I don't like to do futures. I have the 45 currently sold cars in the U.S. that are electric.
I'll keep that up. I'll ask you about that.
Yeah, and so,
if
you will, number one is the Tesla Model 3. Number 2 is a plug-in hybrid, the Prius Prime. And number 3 is the Model X. 4 is the Bolt EV, Bolt with a B. It's not confused with the Volt with a V,
that's right.
which is not produced anymore. And
the Volt is not produced anymore.
The Volt is not produced anymore. And then the Model S is the 5th. And the difference is so stunning because there are in the U.S. 112,000 Model 3s and 15,000 Priuses. The drop-off is cliff.
Right. And Prius are hybrids, right?
No, the Prius Prime.
Prius Prime's a full electric.
Is a plug-in hybrid. It has a battery, can go about 20 miles or 24 miles on battery, and then it has to run the gas engine.
Okay.
So it's called a plug-in hybrid. The Prius is a regular hybrid. The Prius Prime is a plug-in hybrid.
Oh, I see.
And this list is any car that plugs in, not doesn't have to be a full battery. So a lot of these are plug-in hybrids.
Is that a website that is a dot?
This is this is also a website. It's
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Our guest, Syd Weinstein of Delaware Valley Tesla Owners Club. Let's talk about some of the other cars outside of Tesla. You say you have a long list there. Read the top 5 list of electric vehicles available in the United States.
Okay, so there's a group called, its website, InsideEVs.com, which tracks monthly sales of electric vehicles in the United States. And they produce this list every month, although they're having trouble now doing it because the car manufacturers are stopping releasing how many cars they sell every month. Like Tesla's gone to every quarter, GM's gone to every quarter, but they're also not releasing the breakdown, how many of the cars. So if you have a car like the Toyota Prius, which is both a hybrid and a plug-in hybrid, they're not breaking down which model it is.